Jeff, what's up, man? Welcome to Dad Edge.
So glad to be here, Larry. Been looking forward to this.
Oh, dude. Okay, so this is like what, take three? So we finally got it to work. No more
Nice.
echoing.
Third time's the charm, man, just like we rehearsed.
Oh man, for those of you guys who don't know, we had to go through a couple different tweaks to get this thing going. It took about 4 times. But Jeff, man, I'm excited to have you, man. Not only are you married, business owner, also a part of the 4 Kids Club. Tell us about your family.
Dude, my family, like I'm sure on this show, it's a cliche to just wax poetic about my family as the center of my universe and all that. But I mean, it's all true. It's all true. My family, I don't want to say they saved my life because that's like so dramatic, but they gave me a reason to live, not just survive, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I had a unique story of how I came to have a family. I was a divorced bachelor living in New York, and I attended an event of a company that I was in. So I was an online marketer at that time. I was doing affiliate marketing, which basically means I can go anywhere, and as long as I have an internet connection and a laptop, I can work from anywhere, right? So I kind of had this nomadic, they call it a digital nomad, right? This digital nomadic existence.
I don't think I've heard that, but that
No.
sounds kind of cool.
Oh, it's the dream, man. Go on Instagram. Your feed will just be full of these digital nomads and like a tenth of them are actually successfully living the life that they present on Instagram. But anyways, that was me. I was living in New York, marketing online, selling products, and I got invited to this event for a company that I was an affiliate for. I was one of their top affiliates. And so I knew the owners, and the owner introduced me to his daughter, who he had also invited to be at his event. And his daughter, it so happened, was a single mom with 3 kids who lived in a little town I'd never heard of called St. George, Utah.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was living in New York City. She lived in St. George. We just kind of hit it off, long distance. There's a whole story there. But 6 months, let's see, that was November 2010 in, I want to say late March 2011. So not even 5 full months later, I had moved to St. George, and we were making a go trying to create this family thing. What that means is I didn't like get somebody pregnant and then like build up for 9 months and like read the handbook and like get all prepared and mentally adjust and shift and transition to the idea of like becoming a father and then start with a newborn and one. No, I went from divorced New York City bachelor to cohabitating with 3 children, 8, 7, and 2 years old, in a small conservative town in southern Utah, like not overnight, but it's a road trip. It was a 2,000-mile road trip. I left as one person and I showed up as another. And that was my introduction to being a father.
Wow. So I don't know if I've ever talked to anybody like you in that situation, where suddenly you're thrusted into in the throes of fatherhood, like boom, like right away, especially with that type of age range. So what did you notice, like literally right away within the first 30 days where you're like, ooh, what have I got myself into?
Yeah. And add to all that I grew up an only child. So I'm
yeah,
right. It went from all about me to all about these 3. And I didn't even realize that was going to rhyme until I said it. But it just overnight, it was like, there's no, like, you really don't, I mean, I guess you can date a single mom, but there's a certain level of seriousness of a relationship with a single mom where it's no longer, you're not just dating a single mom, you're dating a family. And, it was very scary for her. There's a lot of interesting backstory. I will tell you, like, I might be the only person you've ever had on your show who within a few months of, it sounds like I'm already maybe the only person who's come in, taken on, instant oatmeal kids, right? And then within a few months was actually getting sued for millions of dollars by who would become his father-in-law. But then a year later had completely repaired all that. And like he went on to be the second father to my life. And I ended up being like his second son.
Wait, what?
Yeah, there's, I don't know. It's like, I don't want to come on here and like, be like, I need to tell my story, but like, I almost think I might
Well,
just
now
need to
you
tell my
gotta.
story.
Well, first of all, while you gather information, I want to hear this story. That's like nothing I've ever heard. But I was smiling when you said, kind of single mothers, they really don't date. You date the whole family. It goes back to like 1996 when Rod Tidwell was telling Jerry Maguire, I was like, whoa, man, single mothers don't date. Right, single mothers, they've been to the circle, they've been to the puppet show, and they've seen the strings. Right, so like they have no tolerance for BS. It's either you are going to be involved with this family, or I might go out on 1 or 2 dates and then I'm done with you. There's really no in between. But you've got to tell this story now. Like what happened here?
Okay, so yeah, great reference, by the way. That's such a classic classic scene. But yeah, so I'm at this event again. I'm a twice married only child who dropped out of high school to become a jazz musician, who then finally succeeded in life as an internet marketer, right? So it doesn't get more like independently stubborn than that. I had lived my whole life up to that point, essentially, to say, I do not want accountability or submission to any man or entity or corporation or government or body other than my own free will and my soul's call. Like that was the life I had lived. And then I met her at this event, and she was a single mom who had 2 boys, and I know she's comfortable with me sharing this. I don't want to get in great detail about it, but basically, the biological father of those 2 boys had died by his own hand. He had committed suicide. So then she's a single mom with 2 small kids. Well, she was actually pregnant with one and had a baby. And then, so she's a single mom raising these 2 boys on her own while recovering from that. And then about 6 years later, ends up having conceiving a 3rd child to a man that basically the day he finds out she's pregnant, he bails out. He literally packs his stuff and moves out. So she's a single mom with 3 kids who's got a track record of basically being abandoned by men that either couldn't, wouldn't, or didn't step up to the plate. And I met her, and she was just like this beautifully wounded person, right? And I was a less beautifully wounded person myself. 2 divorces, never really was a super responsible person, but I met her and just sparks flew, and we just were super drawn to each other in a way that defied all explanation. So now in the background behind that, I was doing this consulting. I was basically a fractional executive to a marketing platform in New York. So my job was 14 days a month. I lived in this cool New York apartment in Tribeca that was like 6 blocks from the corporate headquarters, and 14 days a month, so about 3 to 4 days a week, I went into the office and, told them how to do stuff to make more money on the internet. And then on top of that, I got to be an affiliate on the side, which was really lucrative. So I was like making really good money, but I was an affiliate of that company's products. And so I had this really like insular existence, kind of like almost Playboy existence. I don't mean it like that, but just like hanging out in New York, making good money and doing kind of what I wanted.
You were living the life.
Yeah. And recovering from my second divorce, because prior to that, I had been a broke jazz musician, which is a really hard person to stay married to. And therefore 2 women had not successfully stayed married to that person up to then.
Did you, just for curiosity, did you play the Jazz flute? Like Ron Burgundy, did you play the Jazz flute?
I mean, I would never claim to do anything on the level of the great Ron Burgundy. but I do have I can play a little bit of flute, and I do have a closet that smells of mahogany. But yes, exactly.
Got it. Okay.
I need to rewatch that movie now. You're scratching, or you're activating that itch that I think every man needs to rewatch that movie probably once a year. But
yeah, it's like a yearly thing for sure.
But so this is when it gets really nuts, right? So I'm doing this gig, and so this marketing company that I'm consulting for was an affiliate marketing training platform. So we had tens of thousands of students that we were training to be affiliate marketers. And they were aligned with this other company that was the number one company that their affiliates would promote online. And I'm sure you're familiar somewhat with affiliate marketing.
Sure.
And I don't, for your audience, if they may not know, like, let's say you see this video, this podcast, you see this episode on YouTube, and in the description, it's like, Jeff uses a Shure, what kind of mic is this? A Shure SM50 mic. If you'd like to buy one, click here, and it takes you to an Amazon link, and you buy a microphone. And if they do that, then Larry gets $2 or something, right? That's affiliate marketing in a nutshell. And it powers 22% of the internet, of all internet commerce is driven through affiliate links. So it's huge business.
I did not
know it's over $1 trillion a year business is affiliate marketing.
Huh.
And so anyway, I was an affiliate marketer, primarily promoting this wealth education seminar company, right? So I had all these marketing funnels built up, and people would come into my funnels and they would want to learn how to invest their own money or flip houses or anything to do with wealth or finance. And I would say, oh, you should attend one of these conferences where they teach all this amazing stuff. And it was a high ticket seminar conference. And if somebody bought a ticket, I would get a commission. So that was how I made a lot of my money. And we also ran a platform that had tens of thousands of affiliates, most of whom promoted that company. So, and this is all relevant. So anyway, we had started having some tension with that company, which, if you're listening and connecting the dots, you've at this point connected that my now wife's father was one of the founders of that company, right? And so I got invited to their event where he introduced me to his daughter. But unbeknownst to him, the company that I was with and promoting, all of us, the top affiliates and executives at that company, we had been kind of getting frustrated with that other company. And we had decided that we were going to start our own education seminar company so that we could have our affiliates promote something that we had more control of, because we were having some disagreements with the way the other one was being managed. So this event where I met my wife in Las Vegas was the same event where I was giving a presentation from stage to a room of 1,000 people, introducing the new platform that we were going to be promoting, that was going to immediately take all the affiliates from, my wife's name is Jacqueline, from her dad's platform and move them over to our own. And basically they would lose 99% of their business overnight.
Wow.
So he introduces me to his daughter, not knowing that 4 days later, I'm going to be on stage, what he's going to feel like stabbing him in the back, because I had been one of their top affiliates, but obviously I can't disclose any of this. I'm under a non-disclosure agreement. And I'm going to be the guy delivering the launch presentation to launch a new venture that's going to basically take the entire marketing machine from his venture and move it over to ours, and he's going to effectively go out of business. Right 4 days after he introduces me to his daughter. So that's the background for, we have this long distance thing for a few months. Like, she and I are talking on FaceTime every night. And by the way, I do think this is key to why we had such a whirlwind deep connection, is because other than those first few days in Vegas, the first 3 or 4 months that we were dating, most of our relationship was built over FaceTime on the iPhone. So certain things can't happen when you're 2,000 miles away. So most of it was just like really getting to be friends. It's like, not to be weird, but it's kind of like what you and I are doing. It's just like talking to each other on a screen, right? For months. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I got it.
Yeah, you got it. So anyways, but by the time I moved there, 4.5 months later, her dad and I were basically at war. And so a month and a half after I moved there, I ended up getting served with I was in one of multiple named parties in a $10 million lawsuit from that company that was trying to claim that we had violated a contract or something. And that contract, which was a verbal contract, predated my involvement in that company. So I wasn't really I didn't have anything to do with the inner workings of this relationship, but I was the guy that gave the presentation. So I was named in the suit. But long story short, I'm now living in St. George with my new girlfriend, who's a single mom, starting to take on a parent-ish role in the life of her 3 children, while the previous, call it surrogate parent, which had been her father, who was kind of that fill-in role. Like, he was a super great guy. he had been that he took his grandkids fishing. He took his grandkids hiking. He took his grandkids four-wheeling. He threw the baseball with his four grandkids. And now you've got, in his mind, is like this imposter that stepped in, who's also the guy that destroyed his company, and he's suing him for $10 million.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That is very unique. That is definitely a story I have not heard. Wow. Okay. So thank you for clearing that up. But it sounds like you guys you have a great relationship now. Is that correct?
It's incredible. So there's a few things that came out of that. One is after some emotional dust settled, it was very important to me that I was not going to be the reason that these kids no longer had contact with their grandfather. I was not going to be the reason that my girlfriend, who would, obviously then fiance, then wife, didn't have a relationship with her father. I was not going to I didn't want her to be in a position where she had to choose me or him. But, the heart wants what the heart wants. I couldn't help that I was like head over heels in love with her and the kids, by the way. One of my trips out there, the 2-year-old, not knowing in wonderful 2-year-old fashion that I was not actually, for all she knew is suddenly some guy is at the house. Right. She let the D word slip out pretty early, unprompted.
So she started calling you dad,
yeah, because right I was the only adult man that was consistently around the house after a couple months. I was flying out there every weekend to do like 3-day weekends with her and then go back to New York. So I'd work for 4 days in New York, fly, take a long, basically an overnight, although with the time zone shift, it wasn't truly a red eye. Red eyes are west to east, not east to west, but basically fly out, spend Friday, Saturday, part of Sunday, red eye back to New York. I'd go straight from LaGuardia Airport to the office Monday morning and do that. I did that 11 weeks in a row. So I was exhausted. But during all those trips back and forth, Jada, the 2-year-old girl, started calling me dad. And so long story short, I'm now living there and I don't want to be I don't want to be a wedge in a family. Right. And so it took about 6 months, but I was able to chip away at her father. It was mutual, right? Like deep down, we both wanted reconciliation because he was a great guy. I was learning to be a better guy at least. And we both knew that family mattered more. So we ultimately go ahead.
Okay. I have a question that's kind of unrelated, but I thought you were almost done, but that's okay. I want you to finish and then I'll get to my question.
Well, I was just going to say, so ultimately we reconciled and we ended up reconnecting, and I ended up working with him for a few years, helped him basically regrow his company and recover from the damage that had happened. The other part of this is when I went there, because I was now, quote, sleeping with the enemy. That's how my partners in New York termed it, because I had moved in with the daughter of the founder of the company that was suing us. So they sued me. So I was actually getting sued by both sides. And so that actually, they ended up pushing me back into the arms of him, weird as that sounds. And we reconciled and we ended up working together for a couple of years, and I helped him rebuild that company. And then he worked for me. And anyways, we really reconnected. But the biggest thing was the fact that there was all this drama and all this tension around me. And for me, it was the first time somebody had come into the picture of my life in a personal, like a close personal capacity, where even the spoiled only child in me could not pretend that my needs were more important than theirs. These were children. Mm-hmm. And so I said, okay, if I'm going to be here and I'm going to be the source of all this discord, first of all, I need to help. I need to get to the healing part where I start to heal some of this discord around me. But also, how it was almost like I haven't earned the right. I realized pretty quickly, like, holy crap, kids are amazing, but what a huge privilege and a huge responsibility. And I don't have a biological or genetic right to be here. I'm not their dad. And if I'm ever, but there was no other father figure in place, right? Because those dads were gone. But if I'm going to really earn the right to be their dad, I need to earn that right. And so we started going to therapy. We enrolled in parenting classes. I started reading books. I basically treated becoming a dad like my next startup. And it took I would say I still work on it to this day, but I think the fact that I had no intrinsic right to be their dad is, I approached it call it more clinically and as something to master rather than just something that I was entitled to.
Yeah. Can I take me to that moment though, where this little girl, right? You said,
Yeah.
yeah, Jada. Take me to that moment she calls you dad for the first time. What did that mean to you?
Dude, I have shed tears thinking, like, telling and reliving this moment so many times. It was the most transformative moment of my life. Like, whatever happened to Paul on the road to Damascus, or Saul, who was then Paul, I can't imagine this. There's nothing that could seem of greater magnitude in a life than that moment for me. And that to the point where that's the only thing I can even think to compare it to, is like, how can a single spoken word, completely transform a human being from the inside out? It wasn't God for me. It was a child, which is God, it felt the same, right? I mean, we don't have to get all spiritual, but they're like same stuff, right? And we were just sitting in her living room, me and Jacqueline, and her grandmother had come over, who was Carl. Carl was the father-in-law's name, the one that I was fighting with at the time. And his mother had actually she was like, I don't care about all this business stuff. This guy seems like a good guy, and he's being nice to my great grandkids. And, you know, this poor single mom, they viewed her as kind of like, oh, this single mom has struggled and had bad relationships, and she's a great mom, but like, when does she get a break? And they saw in me, potentially I could be that break if I turned out to be a good guy. So they were like willing to give it a fair chance. So I'm sitting in her living room with her, the 3 kids, and her grandmother, whose son is suing me. And we're just hanging out. And all of a sudden, Jada just says, Daddy. I don't remember another word. I don't remember what the other words in the sentence were. I just know she said Daddy. And this is what I remember clearly in my mind, is I looked at Jacqueline as if to say, hey, just like, I never told her to say that. Like, I don't want to feel like I've done something wrong. Like, this is inappropriate. I realize what a heavy moment this is, but like that wasn't prompted by me. It's not like I've been over here telling Jada, like, hey, I'm going to be your daddy or something. And Jacqueline looked at me thinking the same, like, hey, Jeff, I just want you to know, it's not like I put her up to that to try to hook you in. Right. So we both had this like insecure adult moment where we were each trying to like cover our own, asses optically, of like, we didn't do anything weird here. But then, like, once that moment passed, I had this feeling where I was like, oh my gosh, this is, and it's blurred in hindsight, or it's blended together in hindsight between what I felt in the moment and what I feel about it now in retrospect. But I knew something in my body, even I think before I knew it consciously, which is like, there's now something greater than myself that I can commit myself to. And I knew right then, I have got to win this woman, because I do not want to lose this child.
Wow. I'm curious. Only child, your parents, are they still together?
Yeah, my mom passed about almost 3 years ago, but yeah, they were together for 61 years when she passed.
61 years?
Yeah.
Well, I'm so sorry to hear that, man. I'm really curious though. I could hear it in your voice. I could see it on your face of how important, and by the way, I really didn't expect the podcast to go this way, but that's one of the things I love about podcasting. But I saw it in your face. I heard it in your voice of like, this literally shook you from the inside out, and in such a positive, profound way that you'll always remember it. And I really want to get to, I'm sure as a coach, you've heard of the three layers of the why, right? Have you heard of that?
Keep peeling them back. Keep asking.
Keep peeling them back. Yeah. It's like, hey, hey, why do you want to lose weight and get fitter? Oh, I just want to be more confident. Well, why do you want to be more confident? Well, I want to be more confident because this and this. And you ask again, and the person's like, all right, man. Well, at the heart of it, like, I just want to have energy to be around my kids. Like, I want to feel good when I'm having sex with my wife. I don't want to embarrass my family or myself when I'm at the pool. Like, I just, for once in my life, just want to feel good about myself and who I am within this body. And then suddenly you get to like that big why. Mm-hmm. So for you, I'm very curious now that you know, you know the 3 layers and the 3 whys. If you could peel back all 3 of those at the same time and just really pinpoint why this was so moving for you, I would love for you to share it.
Oh,
if you ever even have.
Oh no, I can go there immediately. I've done a lot of therapy, just to be clear. Sure, yeah. And I say that with, honestly, it's with pride. That's like saying I've spent a lot of time in the gym. Like, I'm proud to have worked hard on myself. Right.
Yeah.
No, it's immediately clear. So I grew up feeling like I used to have, my earliest childhood dreams were that I was an alien who had been dropped off on this planet by my home species, and they had abandoned me here to pretend to be a human and to fend for myself. And they would periodically come back and check on me. Those would be the dreams. It was them coming for like wellness checks. Like, I didn't think, but deeply as a child, I didn't really believe I was human. And the reason is because I grew up with.
Are you being serious?
No, I'm dead serious. I have a genetic condition called Waardenburg syndrome, and it was fairly. That coupled with some spoiled only child personality dynamics, like looking different, which it was visibly, like in terms of my craniofacial structure, it was a lot more evident when I was younger. I've kind of matured into it where it's not, like, I think when people see me now, they're like, I don't know, is something there? I don't know. But like back then, like people used to say they used the R word for me as a kid. And
you're kidding.
And I had like a unibrow, and I had like there's some facial affectations that are consistent with the syndrome, and so I had a thing. Basically, it was like being you're not supposed to use the word, right? But that was like the word, the R word, all the time growing up. And plus, I was actually really smart. So to prove that I wasn't that, I would like mouth off and be like a know-it-all, and that just made it worse, right? So I spent my first, I would get bullied. It didn't matter where I was. If it was school, I got bullied. My parents sent me to tennis camp, I got bullied. Basketball camp, I got bullied. Summer camp, I got bullied. A different summer camp, I got bullied. Everywhere I went, I was the kid that just literally, everybody else seemed to get confidence by literally or figuratively kicking me when I was down. And that was my experience of my fellow man for most of my first probably 10, 11 years on this earth. Wow. To the point where psychologically I developed an internal I wouldn't call it a belief, because I don't think I actually thought I was an alien, but that was the narrative that my imagination could create to make sense of it. It's like, I'm not from here. I'm not one of these people, and they can see it. So I spent my whole life, I developed I took a class called Inner Sentence class with the same therapist that I've done most of my work with, and basically, by the age of 10, I developed an inner sentence that was like, I'll be okay if I'm good enough. Mm-hmm. And what that means is, if I can get the best grade on the test, if I can score the winning three-pointer, which was really challenging because I wasn't a very good athlete, but I would like shoot. I would take hundreds of thousands of shots to get to where I was the guy they would put in at the end of the fourth quarter to try to hit the winning three-pointer. And if I could, I'd be okay because I was good enough. If I dated a girl that was pretty enough, then I was okay because people couldn't see how ugly I was. Like everything in my life. I was a piano. When I started playing piano, it was like, if I can get virtuosic enough at the piano, they'll all be looking at my hands. They won't be looking at my face, and they'll go, oh, he's okay. He's good enough, right? Like that was my whole orientation. I joined this. It served me in so many ways, by the way. I joined this affiliate marketing community of 40,000 affiliate marketers. In 6 months, I was number 3 in the whole community, even though I had no experience, because I will just pour myself into something as if my life depends on it, because deep down it does. I think I will die if I'm not the best at the thing. Wow. Until Jada called me daddy. It was the first moment in my life when I understood unconditional love, and it wasn't something I had to earn or strive for. It was freely given. And that's why I compare it to Paul's moment on the road to Damascus, because it wasn't just love, it was grace, it was acceptance, it was belonging, it was purpose, it was life. And I didn't have to work to get it.
It was something bigger. Yeah. It was something bigger than you, right? It was something that you were already everything you needed to be without having to prove a thing, just by showing up.
Yeah. So that's the third layer there.
Wow. First of all, I just want to acknowledge and appreciate you, man, because I know some of the things we were going to discuss, and this wasn't on the radar, and I appreciate you really, really getting personal with us. I'm so curious before we get on to some of the things you're going to talk to us about today. Like, so for instance, the life operating system, which, my God, I'm personally, selfishly, I'm very curious about. I would love to take some gems from that. And I didn't know about your background. I didn't know about your childhood and all that. But here's where I can relate with you. Can I get real with you for a minute?
Yeah, of course, please.
Yeah. So I don't know if I've ever said this publicly, but I'll peel back some onion layers. So I'm 48 years old. I consider myself a decently fit person. I even got my degree in sports medicine with a minor in nutrition. You know, I'm about 175 pounds, about 9% body fat, and I pride myself on being fit. It's very therapeutic to me, like mentally and emotionally, very therapeutic for me to go to the gym and just put all my aggressions and stress and all that. But if I really peel back those onion layers, dude, I know exactly what it feels like to be the guy that everybody picks on. I was the fat kid. I was the one that had zero athletic ability. I was the one that girls didn't like. And no matter where I went, whether it was summer camp, whether it was basketball camp, whether it was football camp, whatever, I was the guy that everyone either physically or verbally just beat the living snot out of constantly. And I remember showing up to certain things like camp or school, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't do it another day. I can't be the guy that. I remember at recess, man, my 8th grade year, it was agony to be out at recess because I wasn't quote unquote good enough to play basketball with everybody else because everybody else would just make fun of me. So I would just kind of like stand off to the side and watch everybody. But people would take turns as they were running to the basket, and instead of shooting the ball, they would freaking just beam it at my head or beam it at me and call me a fat ass and all this other stuff. Once I got to high school and I started working out and I started getting that confidence and building my body, and I lost about 50, 60 pounds. But dude, that was 30 years ago. If you really get to the heart of who I am, it's always, I love all the benefits of training. That's why I do it. It's really why I do it. But there's still a small part of me. I would say 10% of my motivation comes from I never, ever, ever, ever want to be in that position again, even at 48 years old again. And there are times where I can come down so freaking hard on myself for getting off track or, you know, whatever, missing a week at the gym if I've ever done that, or eating really bad or whatever. And it's just like suddenly my entire worth and who I am is wrapped up in that. And I don't even know how that gets to that point. And I always have to reprogram and be like, wait a second. There's way more to your life than this. Like, these are old tapes that the way you grew up, but those are the things that stay with you, man. They really, really do. And so I can relate to that. And I too, you know, my boys love me. I've got a great relationship with all 4 of them. But there's still that part of me that's like, am I doing enough? Am I doing enough for you? Am I loving you enough? Am I supporting you enough? Am I enough of a dad? Like, there's still that thing in the back of my mind, right? And what I have to remind myself is like, if I'm showing up and I'm giving you 100% of who I am and all my attention, even like last night, I sat down with my 17-year-old at the table at 10 o'clock at night. He's like, can we talk? I'm like, of course we can talk. And all he did was talk to me. Did like 95% of the talking. I did 5% of the talking and did most of the listening. And he got up. He's like, you are like the best dad. I'm like, why do you say that? He goes, because I can talk to you about anything. And I'm just sitting there thinking like, all I did was sit here and listen to you. And I have to remind myself that that's really all that he needs in those times. So I would love for you, before we start talking about the operating system, I want you to take what you have experienced in your life and everything that you just talked about, and I want you to give the simplest or the best or whatever advice that you possibly can for another dad out there might be dealing with something similar, or maybe he's just, actually, scratch that. We're talking to a dad who at the core of who he is like, am I enough? Am I enough? What would you tell that man?
Well, the first thing I can say, and I think I'm in a somewhat unique position to say this, is that being a dad doesn't actually have anything to do with biology or DNA.
Dude, 100%, man.
And I get to say that because I'm genetically related to one of my 4 children, not the other 3.
Right.
But gratefully, because there are no other competing father figures in the picture, I can say that I'm the same dad to all 4 of them, and that the genetics makes no difference. So in that sense, I mean, I feel like it's children are the closest we get in a human relationship to experiencing God's love, I believe, in the sense that it's given unconditionally, and it's nothing you have to qualify for. And maybe, I don't know, maybe that's my entire answer to your question. It's like, it is given freely, and it is given completely. And they love your dad bod, and they love your dumb jokes, and they love everything about you that is loving. And so to me, it's like, what does it mean to be enough? It's just something you get out of the way of. Like, just don't get in the way of being enough. You are enough. The only way you get in the way of it is when is doing things that create separation, right? Like, and that can be the way we talk, that can be the way we raise our voice, that can be the way we're on our phones, that can be, and I mean, I love the reason I think there are podcasts in the world for dads is say like, hey, there's nothing you need to do. Like no podcast, no book, no anything is necessary to teach you how to be enough as a dad. Hopefully we can come up with collectively some wisdom around how to not screw up the enoughness. And that's all we can really do here. But like, understand that you are default enough. There's nothing you have to do to qualify for it.
You know what's really interesting about what you just said? Do you know who Meg Meeker is?
Mm-mm. Talk to me. Should I?
Oh, she's great. So she wrote a best-selling book called Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters, Dad, the Hero. She's written quite a few books on the whole topic of fathers, right? The interesting thing is that she was a pediatrician for like 30 years. So she has seen thousands of children, right? And so over the years, she's made several observations as well as done her own research on the impact a father has on the children. And she has a very soft place in her heart for all dads. So one of her biggest messages is, you already have everything that you possibly need to be the father that your kids need you to be. You just have to get out of your own way and learn the skills to make sure that you're doing it in the most confident way possible. But we already have the equipment. We already have what it takes. It's really just knowing what is there, for you to actually utilize and use, and then for you to, quite frankly, give yourself permission to step into it and do it. Because the biggest person that holds us back from being the dad that we could possibly be is the guy who stares at us in the mirror every single morning. Because it goes back to worthiness, right? Self-worth and am I enough and all these other things. But to be really honest, I've already got those things. It's a matter of learning. It's unlearning what we think we've learned and doing things a little bit differently. But I love that we started the first half of the show with what you did. I do want to get to the operating system, though, because I think one of the things that men need are, and in my work, I've seen this time and time again, is men are very loose with their non-negotiables, quote-unquote non-negotiables, right? They're loose with structure. And what I think is desperately needed out there is structure and an operating system, because otherwise, I truly believe without that stuff, we are way more reactive. Right. And if we're reactive, if we're in a mode of reactivity and not proactivity, or an operating system that we follow, well, then we're pretty, the consequences are we're going to do whatever's thrown our way, and we're going to be more reactive to it. So I'd love for you to take us through this operating system.
Yeah. So this is something that I mean, it emerged organically for me. It's not like I set out one day and was like, okay, you know, I want to live a better life, so I need to code an operating system for myself or something. It's not like that. It happened like most of the lessons we learned through just life's trials. But ultimately, what I landed on is 5 years ago, almost, 5 years and like 2 weeks ago. I mean, it's almost to the day, 5 years ago. I decided I had just sold my previous business, and I decided I wanted to really get back into, because back when I used to be an affiliate marketer, the thing I love most about that was helping people that were looking to level up their life, find solutions, find the information, find the solutions to do so, right? And as an affiliate, I would connect them with, maybe it's a financial education seminar, maybe it's a marketing training program, maybe it's an entrepreneurship program, maybe it's a great book I read. Like that's what affiliates do, right? Is they just basically recommend valuable stuff. And I loved that. So I had just sold a business, which was a digital agency. And so I was kind of like loosely retired, not set for life, but like I was very comfortable and I had some time. And I decided to go back into making content on the internet. And I remember the moment I was like, how can I actually do something that is entirely of service? Because there's this whole cliche as an entrepreneur that like Zig Ziglar said, if you help enough other people get what they want, then you'll get everything you want, right? And we all say that, but like deep down, we're always running this calculation in our mind of like, yeah, but what's in it for me too? Because I got bills to pay, or I got a reputation, or I got a box I got to check. I sort of decided, almost not as like some altruistic, I'm such a good person moment, more of like almost as a thought experiment. Like, I wonder what would happen if I actually operationalized an entire existence, a professional existence of service. If my entire career or set of professional endeavors were just actually trying to help people. Like I didn't even know how I was going to make money. There was no paycheck. There was no product to sell. It was just give everything I have away freely to try to help people. Because, and it's interesting because there was a calculation there of like, well, supposedly from what I've heard and from what I actually believe, I think that might lead to something that is great for me, right? But I know I can't be doing it from that place. So I set out to like, okay, what do I think what is it that the world needs? It's kind of this ikigai principle. I don't know if you're familiar with ikigai, but it's this Japanese concept that's the convergence of what am I good at? What does the world actually need? What do I enjoy doing? And what will people actually pay for? And where those four things converge is a Japanese concept called ikigai, which is like your unique purpose, your reason for being, basically, is what it means. And so I was like, well, I know, because looking at my own life, in 10 years, I've gone from being a broke, nearly homeless jazz musician. And when I say nearly homeless, I mean I would have been homeless, except my wife, who I was separated from, her parents agreed to allow me to move in with them. Or else I would have been broke and homeless. And in 10 years, I'd gone from that to quasi-retired, just sold a business, had a really nice financial life, and I had a new family and kids, and like it was a very improbable transformational arc, right, in 10 years. And I'm like, okay. And I was standing out in front of my yard, or my front yard one day, looking around at the neighbors. I live in like an upper middle class kind of suburban neighborhood, and none of the other dads are home because they're all commuting to the job, doing the grind, missing the time with their kids. And it was like a Tuesday morning, and I'm home. Like I saw my kids off, and I'll be there when they come home from school. And Stella, our 2-year-old, she was home, and I was going to go in and play with her. And it's like, if I could help more people have more time freedom, more location freedom, and bear in mind, this was pre-pandemic, so working from home wasn't nearly as common as it is now. That would be a really valuable thing that meets those four things. Like, I know how to do it because I've done it for myself, I should say I'm good at it because I've done it for myself. I enjoy doing it because I love teaching, and like I love teaching because it's the natural extension of learning. Like I know I truly know a thing when I can teach it, right? So I love it. I'm good at it. I'm sure there's eventually some audience, that'd be willing to pay for it, or there's some functional enterprise for it. And I definitely see that the world needs it. I can just look around my own block and see that the world needs it, right? So that was what I went into. And I thought, and so I started teaching like here, all these different concepts related to kind of, I actually called the brand for all the content was called School of Awesome. It was like, I'm going to, just some guy that's going to teach you how to have an awesome life. Yeah. And I did end up, now the platform is called Entre Institute. We have a little more respectable sounding name. But it started as just almost a year. I just gave away all this content. And through back and forth dialogue with a lot of people that were watching the videos and consuming the content, what I basically realized is like, people are already maxed out living the life that they don't like, or that they want to change from, or that they want to level up from, right? It's already taking all 168 hours a week. It's already taking all 2,500 calories a day or whatever they're eating. It's already taking all of what they have to give just to hang on to this life that they want to change. But what do they have to change it with if they're already giving it all just to hang on? And so what I realized is people don't need another marketing course. People don't need another turnkey online business model. People don't need another book to read. People need a way to create more time, energy, and resource bandwidth in their life as a precondition for getting into those other things that can tactically and strategically show them how to get what they want. But if they don't first have a life that now has, it's like being a farmer. Farmers have what are called fallow fields, which are fields that they don't plant because they're letting the soil remineralize. They're letting the potential build in the soil so that when they get a new crop or they're ready, they got to rotate their crops. Now they have this fertile field in which to plant. People that want to change their lives usually don't have any fertile fields in which to plant. And so I realized that the best thing I could do for people was actually to help them re-engineer their life to create a fallow field in which they could plant the seeds of their future. And that was, I took everything I had spent 10 years learning about. You can see I'm wearing a sweatshirt, the three Ps, right?
Yeah, three Ps.
Physical, personal, and professional optimization to create the capacity in their life to actually go achieve something different. And that was the creation of what went on to become, I called it the Awesome Life Design System. And now in Entre Institute, we actually call it the Entre Way, which is, if you come, and this is by no means a promotional pitch for this, but if somebody's like, hey, I want to learn one of these online business paths that this Entre Institute place teaches, you're not going to come in and on day one be like, okay, here's how to run a Facebook ad, and here's how to set up a funnel, and here's how to write high converting sales copy. No. Here's how to take a look at your life and figure out what you need to do to even have, we call them the three legs of successful action: the knowledge, the environment, and the resources to even be able to take a high probability shot at doing something different and new for your life. And this life operating system is the bedrock of that.
And it's all based on these three Ps, right?
Yeah, so it consists of a few basic elements, which I can unpack at a very high level quickly
please,
here. So the first and kind of the anchor element is called the 3x3 success matrix. And so it's three concepts that each have three elements, hence 3x3. So the first is the three Ps of success, which are physical, personal, and professional. And it's installing this, think of it as like a screen or a filter in your life. Where imagine you have your schedule is like a pipe and I don't know, I'm making this metaphor up, but imagine your schedule is a pipe and like what goes in, what comes out, that's like what you do. And you put this filter at the mouth of the pipe that says the only things that get into my schedule are things that I can clearly define as being developmentally productive, physically, personally, or professionally. Nothing else gets in, right? And so then you do this audit of your life and you're like, playing baseball with my son on Saturdays, totally essential for my personal development, right? Going to the gym, totally essential for my physical development. Making my sales calls, totally essential for my professional development. Call of Duty, I don't see where that fits. It's out. Now, for some people, they may go, Call of Duty? Oh yeah. Half of my friends are people that I do, I don't know, I don't game, but I understand there's a big social component to gaming. So for some people, that might be a really essential piece of their personal life that they feel there's no opportunity cost being paid. It's the highest and best use of their time in that part of their life. That's great. But if you're not sure, it probably doesn't make the cut, right? And so it just becomes this sort of heuristic filter for your life that, you talked about, I forget exactly how you said it. Non-negotiables. When you have a non-negotiable for your life that says, if it doesn't promote my development physically or personally or professionally, it doesn't exist. Whew. How much stuff goes away?
Yeah, think about that filter. That's a very strong filter. Instead of saying yes to everything, you filter decisions through that.
Exactly. So that's the first element. The second element is the 3 legs of successful action, which I mentioned, which is anything that I'm wanting to do in my life. We typically make the mistake of saying, I just need more knowledge. We go to knowledge. But the 3 legs are knowledge, environment, and resources. So anything I'm trying to do in my life, do I have the knowledge? Have I created the right environment? And do I have the right resources? And then you will not spend your time trying to acquire more knowledge when it's actually a deficiency of resources. Or you will not waste your time trying to accumulate more resources if they're going to be squandered because you're in a bad environment, right? So it's just that's the second construct, is you start looking at your entire life and saying, everything I'm trying to do I have the knowledge? Am I in the right environment? Do I have the resources? And we break those down. There's certain types of resources. There's certain elements of environment. There's certain types of knowledge and so forth, right? And then the third is what we call the 3 phases of legacy. And this is actually how you architect the long arm of time in your life. Because everybody's trying to build toward a compounding accumulation of call it asset value, although it's not just financial. It can be relationship equity. It can be physical well-being. It can be obviously financial assets and so forth. We're trying to build, and wealth is like actual monetary wealth is a good proxy for thinking about this concept. The problem is a lot of people go online and like, how do I get more money? And they end up watching a YouTube video from Warren Buffett, right? He's like, value investing. The first rule of investing is don't lose money. And the second rule is refer back to rule number 1. That's great if your name is Warren Buffett and you have a $200 billion business called Berkshire Hathaway. But when you are making $45,000 a year and your bills are $46,000 a year and you are trying to turn your life around, I'm going to suggest that that Warren Buffett is actually not very helpful for you, because he is not remotely in the same stage of life as you. He is not remotely in the same stage of the wealth creation journey as you. And so we take the journey of building asset value in any category of life and we break it into these 3 phases called income, growth, and wealth. And in the income phase, you do whatever you have to do. You sell bodily fluids, you sell a kidney, you double mortgage your house, anything that doesn't violate your core non-negotiables of who you are as a sacrosanct human being, you do to create surplus income. Because if you don't create significant surplus in your life, there are no future phases of legacy. There are no future phases of wealth. There's only dying as a greeter at Walmart full of regret. And that's a harsh thing to say, but it's true. And we see it all around us. And so we have income, growth, and wealth, and those have very specific mechanics, specific definitions, and specific targets that you can hone in on and focus with your time as you live the 3 Ps, physically, personally, and professionally, and as you ensure that you have the proper knowledge, environment, and resources around you to be successful. And so that's entirely the 3x3 success matrix that is like the foundation of what you install into your life to basically it turns over all the tables in the temple. Like everything gets disrupted, your life gets thrown into chaos, then it resettles, and you go, okay, cool. Now I have a schedule, a set of habits, a way of being, a simplifying philosophy and set of frameworks to look at my life through. Now I actually have a shot at the life I want. And then there's just 2 other concepts we add on top of that. One is called the 4th P, like physical, personal, and professional for what? Just for glory? No. For purpose. Mm-hmm. There's a purpose. There is a unique, created, if you believe in it, God-given purpose for which you were placed on this earth that can emerge if you have a life that is consistent enough, still enough, predictable enough, and disciplined enough from which the clarity of purpose can emerge. Purpose comes later. That's why we separate it out. That's why we don't just say it's the 4 Ps. No. First, Live a life of physical, personal, and professional excellence. Do that consistently over time, surrounded by the right knowledge, environment, and resources, with a sense of positional awareness through the long arc of what it is you're trying to build in your life through the three phases. Do that for a while, and over time, a purpose will emerge. You will start to understand why you're on this earth. And by the way, it will have always been there your entire life. That's how you know you're onto it. And then the fifth element, the fifth element is just what we call living every day, is what we call the intra-day, or I call it an awesome day or a perfect day sometimes. And it basically just means every day I have a structured morning routine. I have physical, personal, and professional deposits, which means every day I am doing something to meaningfully increase the value of my physical, personal, and professional bank accounts in my life, which obviously we're talking metaphorical bank accounts. But because you know the day is going to come when you got to make a withdrawal. But every other day, you need to be making those deposits every day. And then finally, before I go to bed, I take my nap. Nightly assessment and planning. I look back over my day. I make sure I had my routine. I make sure I made my deposits, and I look forward to the next day. And I make sure that I'm ready the night before so that I can wake up in the morning and hit the ground running with what I'm supposed to do and not be scrambling for the knowledge, environment, and resources to be able to have a successful day because I figured it out the night before. That's the whole operating system. And we have enrolled, Entra's enrolled 260,000 plus students now in 4 years. I personally run boot camps around this operating system. I talk about it in my content. I will say that, we get a lot of people that are like, well, it's like I said, I'm maxed out, right? I'm a teacher by day. I work a second job as a cocktail waitress. I also raise 2 kids. I'm stressed out. I don't know how. And like living a life that's this kind of discipline and this kind of systematized is really the only shot that I think a lot of people have. And it doesn't have to be my system, but it's got to be a system, right? System. Save yourself time, energy, and money. People got to have a system. And what I would say is the reason you need the system is you want to get to where you have a life where the only 2 things that you're required to show up with every day are a sense of purpose and energy. And everything else is decided for you because you have decisions, distractions, and disruptions are the reason that most people that step up to the starting line full of purpose and energy, and they either don't get to the finish line, or if they do, they're run ragged and they didn't run the race that they wanted. Why? Because of all the decisions they had to make along the way. Well, it's 9 a.m. What am I supposed to do today? Should I eat breakfast or should I go to the gym? Should I call my wife or should I do this or should I do that? No. Have all those decisions made for you ahead of time by your life operating system. Microsoft Office or Microsoft Windows, when you boot up your computer, it doesn't have to think about the sequence of steps, the boot sequence. It's all built into the operating system. When you get your life to this point, dude, people ask me like, Jeff, how did you, like Entra, we grew from, forgive the flex, but like we grew from about a $2 million a year business to about a $50 million a year business in 16 months. How? You want to know how? Because I was living a life operating system and I had time to do it. I had time to do what it seems like there's not time to do because everybody has way more time than they think if they get organized enough.
I 100% agree with you. I want to take a step back here. You said NAP stands for nightly assessment. What?
And planning.
Planning. Okay. Let me ask you this. And then system stands for save yourself.
Time, energy, and money.
Time, energy, and money. Okay. Got it. I'm taking meticulous notes here, man, obviously. So, here's the interesting thing. So I just put, let's just put this to the context of just an everyday, what I consider a very simple, but I didn't used to think that this was a simple decision. I put on social media, how is it that we dated our spouses and that evolved into us loving so much that we got married? So why is it when we get married, we stop dating our spouses?
Right.
Like, the date nights kind of go away, right? And people are always saying like, I feel disconnected. One of the things we do best in our mastermind is help men with marriage. It's one of the best things we do. 80% of guys who come and do life with us, they want to level up their marriage in some way, shape, or form. Communication is usually a big one. So I put that out on social media, and personally, I find it fascinating now since I know the psychology behind all this and kind of where people are in their journey. And you have people that comment on that and they're like, yeah, that's a weekly or a bi-weekly date night. That's a non-negotiable. Some people would be like, I've done that for 20 years. Like, I've been married for 20 years. It has literally been one of the biggest needle movers, non-negotiable. I will never not date my wife, right? And we had women chime in on it too. But then we have people that, like, I had one guy like literally comment and he said, yeah, it's easy to do that stuff when you're living in your parents' house, rent-free, going to college. But there's some things, there's a few things called mortgage, bills, and kids that completely and totally get in the way of date nights, and they're impossible. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, and that's a guy, I understand where he's at. He's fighting for he's fighting to justify his reality. Right. But if you put a mirror in this guy, I hosted, and this actually came from a training that I did on how to plan a great date night with your wife. And at the end of this training, I had 40 guys on the training, and I said, okay, here's where the rubber meets the road. It's one thing for me to teach you guys this, but in the last 10 minutes, I want every single person to identify a date night for your wife in the next 30 days and then invite her via your calendar to this date night. That's it. And almost every guy did it. So I think it's interesting because if I look at your list, right, and I'm looking at a few things here. So how to filter decisions that will improve our lives, right? Running those things through a filter. Is this going to be productive? Is this going to move the needle forward in my personal, professional, physical journey, whatever that is, my relationships or whatever, right? Is it going to help? Yes, I'll do it. Is it going to not? I'm not going to do it. So that's one thing. Number two is the NAP, the nightly assessment planning. I guarantee if people did just those two things, just those two things alone, it would greatly improve your life. So like, for instance, the temptation to go spend the next 20 minutes on Instagram, right? But then I can't justify, I can't figure out a time to go take my wife out on a date, which by the way, would probably take them on the same amount of time. So, filtering decisions like, okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go do this instead because it's going to improve my life. But the other thing too is like that nightly assessment planning. Like, what exactly are my needle movers for the next day, professionally, personally, and physically, right? And being able to make decisions and prioritize those things. Like if you had it like, hey, I was on that training last week. I didn't do a date night with my wife. Like, I'm planning that tomorrow. It's going on my calendar. Plan date with Jessica for the month of October, period, right? That thing, it's on the calendar. It's part of the operating system. Most likely it'll get done. But it's fascinating to me that when people don't have an operating system like this, they are victim and subject to the life that is being thrown at them. And they feel like they have to say yes to everything. They feel like they have to say no to everything. They say yes to the wrong things, the distractions, the things that don't move the needle. They say no to the things that would move the needle. It's very messy if you don't have these guardrails in there. So I can totally see why this is, and this, quite frankly, this is a lot of how I live my own life, right? But I used to be in the other camp where I didn't,
and you thought you were you were
sucks.
freer then, didn't you?
I did. I really did. I used to get confused every now and again when I heard Jocko's statement, discipline equals freedom. I'm like, I don't know. But man, that is so true. It is so true, because if you're disciplined in creating the life that you want, then you'll enjoy the life that you create.
Yeah.
And
by the way, that word discipline, I spend a lot of time on words, but I view discipline. Discipline is based in the word disciple.
Exactly.
I love thinking of, like, discipline sounds like this thing that we have to manufacture. It has to come from within us. Discipleship is actually about surrender to something greater than us.
Yeah.
And that's where, the idea to me, the reason this framework is so simple, it's just 5 elements, and all of them fairly malleable, is you should customize it to your life, but you should customize it to the vision of the best life based on the version of the best version of yourself. And then work backwards. Say, what does that person's life look like? And then create that system. And now you're just becoming a disciple who surrenders to the best version of yourself, living the best possible life. And for most people, there's a large number of things that I was doing previously that no longer fit, and create space for a whole new set of practices. And the thing is, most of the thing, like people, like to the guy that said, oh, well, you know, wife and bills and mortgage and, you know, all these things, right? Yeah. Most of the have-tos in life are structured. Like if you get hired for a job, I mean, I know that there's like, you know, ER surgeons that are on call and they don't necessarily know exactly what hour they'll be called in. But even then they have blocks of time when they're on call. Like there are very few people in this world whose job is completely unpredictable as to time, right? Most of the have-tos in life are structured. So if you have a life that feels like it's impossibly unstructured, that's probably not because of things that somebody else is saying you have to do. It's probably because of things that you're choosing, right? You've chosen into. And so right. I just believe that everyone can structure themselves to freedom.
I 100% agree with you. You can put in structure, like even like if you're a business owner, you need this, I think, even more so, because I mean, if you take your business, right, you go from, you know, a handful of $1 million to $50 million in 16 months, you know, you're running, I have almost 100 people that work for me.
Yeah.
Like I could literally work for 24 hours a day and say yes to work all day long and get nothing else done and still not be caught up. Mm-hmm. Right. But I have a team that also helps me too. But in my world, like that's kind of my reality. Like I have to say yes to all that stuff versus like, wait a second, let me put in some structure where I can build my life around this business so I don't sacrifice all these other things. Because I think that's another thing that we really, really get caught up in is that provider role. You know, whether you're a career guy or a business owner, you know, you get so caught up in that. It's like, well, I got to provide for my family. And then suddenly you're like, yeah, you know, financial needs are being met, but everything else is left on the table, man. Mm-hmm. Like there's got to be integration. I'm not saying balance, but integration, right? So I want to make sure if people, you know, as we wrap up here, I want to make sure if people want to connect with you or they want to learn more about this or even work with you, what is the best way possible for them to connect with you?
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, if somebody goes to my website, jefflernerofficial.com, there's a section in the navigation bar that says, I want to, and then it's a drop down. And so if it's like, or it says, I am looking to, and it's like, attend a boot camp, get coaching, learn entrepreneurship, read my book, get free resource, like whatever somebody wants from me, it's in the I am looking to drop down in my website. That's probably where I'd send people to start. Obviously, I'm all over social media. Jeff Lerner Official is the handle, but start at the .com and go from there.
No problem, guys. We're going to have all the links in the show notes for you, so not to worry.